Why do you still struggle to be disciplined, even when you know exactly what you should be doing? Have you ever really stopped to think about that? Or have you just accepted the excuse that you lack motivation? Most men fail not because of a lack of strength, intelligence, or opportunity, but because they depend on something that was never reliable: motivation. And here is the point that almost no one tells you. Motivation is unstable, emotional, and temporary. It shows up when it wants and disappears exactly when you need it most. Have you been through this? That strong impulse to change your life, start a project, train, study, and a few days later, it all simply evaporates. Now think with me. What if the problem was never you, but the system you are using? While today people wait to feel like it before taking action, there was a man who built a practically unbeatable mind without depending on that. Miyamoto Musashi, a samurai who won more than 60 duels, not because he was always motivated, but because he mastered something far more powerful: absolute discipline. Samurai did not wait for desire. They trained even without it. They acted even when tired. They kept going even when everything inside them said to stop. That was not physical strength. It was mental control. It was discipline. And this is exactly where Stoicism comes in, a philosophy that teaches something simple but brutally effective. You do not control your feelings, but you control your actions. And when you truly understand that, everything changes. What you are about to discover may surprise you, because it has nothing to do with magic formulas or constant motivation. There is a type of discipline that no one sees, that no one applauds, but that completely transforms who you are on the inside. Stay with me until the end, because what comes next will show you why some men keep breaking promises to themselves, while others become practically impossible to stop. And perhaps in this moment, you are realizing something. It is not about waiting until you feel ready. It is about acting even when you are not. And if that is already starting to make sense to you, let me tell you something important. You are not alone in this process. If this topic resonates with you, comment "discipline" below. It may seem simple, but that small act is already a conscious step. It is you declaring to yourself that you want to change. And I want to read that. I want to know who is truly committed to this transformation. And if this video is helping you in any way, hit the like right now, because this is not just about numbers. When you like it, YouTube understands that this message needs to reach more people. People who may be exactly where you once were, stuck in a lack of consistency, trying to break out of that cycle. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of content. This is how we build something greater, a community of men who have decided to stop negotiating with themselves. And if you want to develop a strong, disciplined, nearly unshakable mind, subscribe now, because this is where ordinary men learn to think like strategists, to act with intention, and to build a discipline that does not depend on motivation. Now, understanding all of this, there is a point that definitively separates those who merely try from those who truly become disciplined. And that is exactly what we need to face from here on. The modern mistake, depending on motivation. There is a hidden truth that few people have the courage to face. You are not failing because you are weak. You are failing because you were conditioned to depend on the wrong thing: motivation. It seems powerful at first, almost like an emotional fuel. You watch something, feel inspired, sense that energy rising inside you, and you decide to change. But the problem is that this energy is not stable. It fluctuates. Today it is high. Tomorrow it disappears. And when it vanishes, it takes your promises, your decisions, and often your confidence along with it. Real discipline does not work that way. It does not depend on emotion. It does not need enthusiasm. It is behavioral, silent, built behind the scenes of your own mind. It is the kind of strength that does not show itself, but sustains everything. Have you ever promised to change and failed just days later? Have you ever told yourself that this time would be different, that you were going to train, study, focus, and simply could not maintain it? That is not a lack of ability. It is a lack of mental structure. The Stoics said something that has crossed centuries. You do not control what you feel, but you control what you do with it. And that sentence carries a profound impact, because the moment you understand it, you stop negotiating with your own mind. Miyamoto Musashi would never have depended on motivation. He did not wake up waiting to feel ready. He trained even when tired, even without desire, even in discomfort, because for him, discipline was not an emotional choice. It was an identity. And this is where an important turning point begins in your journey. Because as long as you keep waiting to feel something before acting, you will remain trapped in the same cycle. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because there is a level of discipline that goes beyond behavior. It enters the territory of the mind, where very few people ever truly manage to reach. Miyamoto Musashi, the man who conquered himself. There is a brutal difference between conquering the world and conquering yourself, and few stories represent that with as much clarity as that of Miyamoto Musashi. He was not merely a skilled warrior, he was an anomaly, undefeated in more than 60 duels, facing experienced, dangerous opponents who were often better prepared. But what truly stands out is not the number of victories, it is what was behind them. Musashi spent much of his life in isolation, far from distractions, far from comfort, far from the need for validation. While many sought external recognition, he dove into the inner workings of his own mind. There, where no one sees, where true transformation happens. This was not a journey about swords, it was about decisions, about mentality, about internal mastery. There is a phrase that echoes to this day, like a direct and almost uncomfortable reminder: you may conquer 1,000 men or conquer yourself. And here is the point that changes everything. The greatest battle was never external. It was never against the world, against other people, or against circumstances. It was always internal. The Stoics understood this with impressive clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not over external events." And when you truly absorb that, you realize the game changes completely. Because discipline, at its deepest level, is not about doing more. It is about mastering what happens inside you when no one is watching. It is about controlling impulses, silencing distractions, and acting with intention, even when everything inside you wants to escape. Musashi did not become unbeatable because he was stronger, but because he was more controlled, more aware, more aligned with his own mind. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject because there is a type of discipline that is born exactly in that silence, away from eyes, away from recognition, and it is there that true strength begins to take form. And as you begin to understand this deeper level of discipline, it may be worth taking a next step in a more practical direction, because theory without application does not generate real transformation. If it makes sense to you, take a look at the material I left below, called The Path of Japanese Discipline. It was prepared specifically for those who want to move beyond understanding and into action, applying in everyday life the mindset of discipline we are exploring here. The proposition is simple but powerful. Develop a disciplined, focused, and unshakable mind, capable of acting every day, even when motivation fails, when fatigue weighs heavy, and when no one is watching. It is a method based on ancient Japanese principles aimed at eliminating procrastination, mastering unstable emotions, and building that silent consistency that truly shapes lasting results. And what is most interesting is that it is not about fleeting enthusiasm, but about creating a type of mental strength that sustains decisions over time, something that, in fact, has already impacted more than 1 million people around the world. This material is complementary to what we are discussing here and can save you a great deal of time in practice, because it organizes this path in a direct, distraction-free way. It is here in the description, but I may take it down in the coming days. So if this resonates with your journey, it may be a good idea to take advantage of it while it is still available, because understanding is the first step, but applying is what truly changes the game. The Stoic principle: control what is within your power. There is a silent shift in the mindset of any man who decides to take discipline seriously, and it begins when you understand a simple but uncomfortable truth. You do not control desire, you do not control emotion, and you certainly do not control laziness, but you control action. This is one of the strongest foundations of Stoicism, a philosophy that promises no comfort, sells no shortcuts, but delivers something far more powerful: clarity. The Stoics repeatedly put forward ideas that crossed centuries, such as when Epictetus said, "It is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them." And this is exactly where discipline begins to take real shape. Because discipline is not waiting until you feel ready. Discipline is acting even when you are not. It is training without desire, working while tired, keeping your word even when no one is watching. It is at this point that the journey stops being emotional and becomes strategic. Miyamoto Musashi understood this like few others. For him, there was no room for internal negotiation. There was no, "I am not feeling well today," or "I will do better tomorrow." There was only execution, and perhaps this is one of the most important revelations for anyone seeking true transformation. The weak mind negotiates. It creates excuses, postpones decisions, seeks comfort. The disciplined mind, on the other hand, executes. It acts based on principles, not feelings. This type of mentality completely changes the impact of your choices, because you stop being a prisoner of the moment and begin building consistency behind the scenes where most people give up. And when you begin to live this way, something curious happens. Your decisions become simpler, your mind more stable, and your journey clearer. Not because it got easier, but because you stopped fighting against what you feel and started acting in spite of it. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because there is a level of discipline that not only controls actions, but redefines who you become over time. And there is a point that connects directly to what we just discussed, and very few people notice it. Because sometimes the problem is not a lack of discipline, it is an excess of distraction that is sabotaging your mind without you even realizing it. There is a video called "It is not lack of discipline, it is excess of distraction" Fudoshin, that digs into exactly this hidden truth. It shows how your attention is being stolen every day, and why that destroys your consistency even when you want to do the right thing. I will leave the link in the card above and also on the end screen of the video. So do this. Watch this video all the way through first. Absorb everything we talked about here and then go straight to that next one. Because when you connect these two pieces of content, your vision of discipline and mental control will never be the same again. Invisible discipline, the secret of the unbeatable. There is a part of the journey that almost no one talks about because it does not show, it offers no immediate recognition, and often does not even seem to have any impact at the beginning. But it is exactly there that everything happens, behind the scenes, in silence. Invisible discipline is the true differentiator. It is what no one sees, no one comments on, no one applauds, but that builds, little by little, a completely different mindset. It is waking up early without posting about it. It is studying without needing to show it. It is training without an audience, without validation, without applause. It is finishing a workout without taking a mirror selfie at the gym and posting it on social media with the caption, "Paid in full." And here is the truth that many people avoid facing. When there is no external reward, most people quit because they were conditioned to act only when there is recognition, motivation, or quick results. But men who understand the game operate differently. The Stoics carried a powerful idea: do what must be done, even if no one is watching. And that phrase, when taken seriously, completely changes the level of your discipline, because you stop acting for others and start acting for who you are becoming. Miyamoto Musashi lived exactly that way. Much of his evolution happened away from the eyes of the world. No stage, no validation, no distractions, only repetition, focus, and internal mastery. And that is why this phase is so decisive in your journey, because this is where the real separation happens. This is where ordinary men give up and the unbeatable are born. In the moments when no one is watching, no one is demanding anything, no one expects anything from you, but you keep going anyway. It is in that silent space that discipline stops being an effort and begins to become part of your identity. And the further you advance on this level, the more you realize that the true impact does not come from what you do when you are motivated, but from what you sustain when you are not. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject because there is a method behind this construction, a path that transforms this invisible discipline into something solid, nearly unshakable. The samurai method, how to build absolute control of the mind. Now begins the part that turns all of this into something practical, because discipline without application does not change destiny, does not generate impact, and does not sustain growth. There is a method, an almost invisible structure that shapes this mindset, and it is not complex, but it demands decision. The first step is to cut out the excess. It sounds simple, but here lies one of the greatest modern traps. Constant distractions, stimulation at all times, easy dopamine. All of this weakens your capacity for focus. Less distraction means more control. It is like clearing the battlefield before fighting. Miyamoto Musashi understood this. He eliminated the unnecessary to strengthen the essential. Next come fixed rituals. Discipline is not born from intensity. It is born from repetition. Doing the basics every day, even when it seems small, builds something powerful over time. The Stoics already said, "We become what we repeatedly do." And that phrase carries a truth that very few actually apply. The third point is decisive. Do it even without desire. Here there is no negotiation. The rule is clear. Action above emotion. You do not wait to feel ready, you execute. Because every time you act in spite of resistance, you strengthen your mind. And that connects with the next level. Training discomfort. Cold, silence, effort. Everything that most people avoid is exactly what builds mental resilience. It is not about suffering. It is about adaptation, about expanding your internal limits. And perhaps the most important point of all, do not negotiate with yourself. Decided, execute. No excuses, no postponement, no self-deception. Because every time you break an agreement with yourself, you weaken your identity. And every time you keep one, you grow stronger. Musashi did not become unbeatable because of talent. He became unbeatable because he eliminated the possibility of failing himself. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject because there is a moment in the journey when all of this stops being an effort and becomes who you are. Identity. The day you stop trying and start being. There is a silent moment in any man's journey, an almost invisible but decisive point where everything changes. It is not when you get more motivated, nor when you find a new technique. It is when you stop trying to be disciplined and start becoming someone who is disciplined. That is the real turning point, because as long as you are still trying, there is room for failure, for excuses, for internal negotiation. But when it becomes identity, there is no more choice. There is only coherence. You do not need to try to wake up early. You wake up. You do not try to keep what you promised. You keep it. And this has far more to do with character than with productivity. It has to do with honor, with the way you regard your own word. The Stoics spoke about living in alignment with your principles. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that carries enormous weight. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. That is not about perfection. It is about integrity. Miyamoto Musashi lived exactly at that level. For him, discipline was not a tool. It was part of who he was. Every action reflected an internal, non-negotiable standard. And here is the truth that changes the game. Discipline is not something you do. It is who you become. When you reach this level, your decisions stop being a constant effort. They become automatic, natural, aligned with the identity you built behind the scenes. And this is why so many people stall, because they try to change behavior without changing identity. They try to act differently, but keep thinking the same way. And without that internal shift, any progress becomes temporary. But when you begin to see yourself as someone who does not break promises, everything aligns. Your mindset changes. Your choices become clearer. Your journey gains direction. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject because there is an inevitable consequence when you reach this level of discipline, something that definitively separates those who build an ordinary life from those who become practically impossible to stop. Moral of the lesson. There is a simple truth, but one that carries enormous weight when you truly understand it. True discipline does not shout, does not show itself, and does not depend on anyone. It is not in the moments of excitement, nor in the phases when everything seems easy. It lives in silence, behind the scenes, in the small decisions you make when no one is watching. And that is exactly where everything is decided. It is not on the day when you are motivated that your mindset is tested. It is on the day when you are tired, discouraged, without desire, and you still choose to act. It is at that point that your identity truly begins to solidify. The Stoics always reinforced this with brutal clarity. Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." And when you face that sentence with depth, you realize that every difficult moment is, in truth, a silent opportunity for growth. Miyamoto Musashi built his journey exactly that way. It was not in the duels that he became unbeatable. It was before them, in the solitary training sessions, in the invisible decisions, in the discipline maintained, when no one was there to see it. And perhaps this is the greatest revelation of all. There is no shortcut to this level of transformation. There is no quick formula, no constant motivation. There is repetition, consistency, and above all, internal commitment. That is what separates ordinary men from unbeatable men, because in the end, it is not about how many times you try, it is about how many times you hold firm when it would have been easier to give up. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject because there is an inevitable consequence when you live this way long enough, something that changes not only your discipline, but the entire way you see your own life and your decisions. And if you made it this far, It is because this subject touched something on a deeper level, not just as an idea, but as a direction. So leave it registered below. Discipline is my path. This is not just a comment, it is a positioning. It is you marking the beginning, or the continuation, of this journey with greater awareness. And if this video made sense to you, hit the like. That shows that this type of content needs to keep existing and reaching more people who are also seeking this kind of transformation. If you want to develop a stronger, more strategic, more disciplined mind, subscribe to the channel, because the next videos will shake your way of thinking and acting even more. And there is a video right here on the side that perfectly complements everything we talked about today. Click on it and keep going with me there.